Welcome to the 2025 Thanksgiving special. I am one of your hosts, Tom Grieve, and I'm here with
Mike Kwiatkowski, a paid non-attorney spokesperson.
AKA the Polish Assassin. So I just made that up right now.
FFL expert, Polish assassin, whatever works.
Yeah, we're gonna go with that. We're very excited to be here with you. Of course, the Thanksgiving special. We're gonna close with something as well, but we're here as an homage to the late, great Paul Harrell. So Paul, to whoever you are, we love you. We wish you nothing but the very best, and this is all in his honor. And today, just as a heads up, we are in the 30s here in beautiful Wisconsin. We're in the North Woods. Hopefully you kind of got that suggestion already. We brought a few implements. I'm sure we're going to talk about them at some point. This is in case the deer regroup and mount a second wave assault. First one got a little...
That one was a little froggy.
That got close.
Yeah.
It got close. And,
Calling in the grouse, too.
Yeah, the rough grouse doubled as air support for them. Did not see that coming. But fortunately, they're both in season. We turned out okay. Derek's wounded, our bold cameraman. He's currently getting some medical attention, but maybe he'll make an appearance later on. So what we have here today is the abridged version of what we did last year. I'm sure that we're going to tell you a little bit about what happened last year after the camera went off. But the short version is we did not want anything like that again. And so we've narrowed down the ingredient list. There was going to be a third dish, but there was a technical snafu, and now there's just two.
This is a very abbreviated Thanksgiving special, at least compared to normal. Then again, we've only had one normal, and that's really fine. Plus, Tom and I, to say that the last few months have been ridiculous and that this coming week for both of us is going to be ridiculous, this works.
Yeah, this works. So we had less time to stage it, so hopefully you still get something out of it. As always, we look forward to reading your comments, so be sure to drop comments down below as we go along. Otherwise, what we're going to be making for you here today, maybe I should have watched a cooking show so I could learn what they say and all that kind of stuff. But
well, what they say versus what they do are two different things.
That's fair. That's fair.
Just like elected officials.
That's unfortunate, but equally as fair.
Reality.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the venison chili once more. We're going to be throwing up some ingredients as we go along. Derek's going to roll that for you on the screen. Maybe we'll also post it below. I have won every single chili cook-off that I've gone into with this recipe.
He's not lying, and it's good. It is actually really good.
It was also only one chili cook-off.
And he was the only contestant.
That's not true. I had two or maybe three other people, but that's not nothing. So we're rolling with it. There was a trophy.
Toilet paper?
Nope. That would have been a good trophy for second and third place. But yeah. So we're gonna be getting some ingredients going into place. But before we get going on any of that, and we've got a lot of things to talk to you here. We've got a lot to
you hear about.
Yes, we've got a lot of things to talk to you today about. And I'm excited to be getting into some of these layers. I'm excited to be talking about some of these firearms as we go through here as well. There's only, I think, 2 Title I firearms here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there are only 2 Title I firearms here.
Yes, not including our open carry and our unintentional concealed carry, which is ordinarily open carry, but 30 some odd degrees, so we'll cut him some slack.
I'm openly carrying just fine, Tom.
I'll just say that little toy on the ground over there, well, there's also one against the tree if you can't tell. One of those is a Title I firearm. I'll let you guess if it's the side-by-side versus that other thing. Let me know your guess in the comment section. But we need to get started here and rolling, and let's probably get the fire started.
That sounds like an excellent idea.
All right.
Okay, so last year we did the lump charcoal, and we used one of these charcoal starters. I had never used one before. Yes, I'm underprivileged. And I was really shocked by how well this thing worked. I mean, it really got going. So we're just going to do that again this year.
It looks like you're burning the technology pages of what? The
Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I found that the Journal Sentinel, Milwaukee's paper, just doesn't burn well.
I mean, is it good for nothing then?
Only if you want it to smell bad. For those of you not from our area, that is our hometown paper, and there's a reason we disparage it. But that's a whole nother matter. And frankly, with the way these videos go viral sometimes, I almost wonder if we're going to get an angry phone call about this eventually.
Just negative coverage. It's passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive. All right.
So as we're rolling through here and Mike's getting going, we've had a lot of things happen and we're going to kind of start this off on just the kind of the business side, just to get that lifting done, of talking about what's been going on with firearm law and the Second Amendment since Trump's been elected. We're in a very different place now, and anybody who's been paying even remote attention knows that for the first time, and I can't quite say ever, but it feels like ever, we're winning at the federal level. Yes, there's a lot more things that can and should be done to push pro-Second Amendment causes.
It's a start.
I've commented on that before. So there's no bootlicking or anything like that going on. But it's also impossible to deny we are actually getting things done. We're moving the ball forward, maybe more incrementally than we would all prefer. For instance, we've got the $0 tax stamps on NFA, right? As opposed to
most
not all
NFA.
Yeah, not all NFA, but you know, it'd be great to get things out of NFA. It'd be great to
repeal the NFA.
All great things to be done, but we are actually moving forward. And the biggest thing we move forward on, and I always tell this to people too, is you're moving forward on the federal judicial appointments. These lifetime appointments that the president fills are so incredibly important to the Second Amendment, because I think as everyone has learned in the last 2 years, so much of our rights, for better or worse, are not only won and lost in legislatures, in DC as well as in your local state level, but also by judges. And these federal judges, which were appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate, these are lifetime appointments. So that's a big deal. And so where we're all stacking up is we're winning at the federal level, but in the last several years, anti-gun states are going super anti-gun. I mean, Hawaii, Illinois, Minnesota recently.
That St. Paul move.
Right.
For those of you who may not be familiar, St. Paul in Minnesota passed an assault weapons ban. It is legally unenforceable. There is state preemption. It is absolutely symbolic foolishness only. But here we are. They are trying to push these things through.
And state preemption, for those of you who don't know, this is a really important doctrine that a lot of states have that's amazing at protecting the Second Amendment. And it says that municipalities, so here in Wisconsin, Milwaukee and Madison, the two places that would love to, I'm sure, do something if they could, ban handguns. Well, probably that won't work anymore thanks to the Supreme Court, but maybe a magazine capacity restriction law, something like that.
So-called assault weapons bans.
Exactly. But you cannot pass something more restrictive at the local level, city, village, county, town, than what exists at the state level. So you can't pass anything more restrictive. And that's a really big check on cities, big cities, going off the beaten path. But
beaten path is a polite way of putting it. And I concur with you about the judges. Something that I was once told that I have taken serious heat for repeating, but this came from a state judge who is now retired. Don't tell me the law, tell me the judge. Tom chuckles. It's real. We all know what should be but we all know what reality is, and should and reality are often two very separate things.
And that's especially true when you get to what has become, for better or worse, really a third rail political issue, right? I mean, in the 80s and 90s, and well, 70s, 80s, 90s, and aughts, it was abortion. And then it's really, do you really hear people talk about abortion so much anymore?
You still do. I hesitate to say that it's a non-issue, because it clearly is still an issue. But it's not as, it's not, we don't have, who is it, Randall Terry, Operation Rescue, a lot of those notorious groups out of the 90s. We don't really have that anymore. You know, when something occurs at a clinic, it's pretty shocking and it makes a lot of news. People, they talk about the 1970s with the days of rage and the bombings. The 90s was really a lot of, that is kind of where political or demonstration theater started.
Right.
We don't have that so much anymore.
Right, right. Well, and obviously the Supreme Court did a few things on abortion too. So it's not like nothing's moving, but I don't know. It's hard to say because, you know, obviously if you're watching this, you're in the gun sphere, you're in the Second Amendment world, and we live in, I don't want to say a bubble, but because that makes it sound like we're just super cut off. The reality is that everyone lives in different bubbles. We all have our own bubbles. And
we're all in a silo with something.
Yeah, and that just has to do with, you know, our identity, and our identity has a lot of different layers. Maybe you're Lutheran, maybe you're Catholic, maybe you're nothing, maybe you're Buddhist, maybe you're whatever, right? So there's a religious dimension to your group identity. You've got, you know, ethnic ones. Maybe you're really involved in Polish dancing or something. I don't know, but you know, you kind of layer that all together. You're into your sports teams, you're into your particular line of work, and maybe you've got interests and hobbies like hunting or trains or whatever it is you're into, and you kind of put that all together, and well, that's a lot of bubbles, and they kind of all intersect on you, right? So here,
Venn diagrams.
yes, yeah, that's another way of putting it. So you know, the bottom line is, if you're watching this, we know we're all in the Second Amendment bubble. So we know that this has really gone hot in the last 10 years, 15 years, but it's particularly the last 8, you know.
I'm going to respectfully disagree and say 35 plus. I would say 1989 when, well, going all the way back to 1986 with FOLPA, 1989 with the import ban, 1994 with the big ban, all of the little tweaks done in the 90s, and then certainly we've had since 2000, it's just been constant with the pendulum wildly swinging back and forth. I would say that if you've been in this hobby for a while, you know all about panics and runs and threats, legislative threats. And certainly at state levels, it's just been a 3-drink minimum. So this has been ongoing, I would say, for even longer.
I 100% agree. I'll clarify what I was saying, which is we didn't have the Pro 2A legal ground game, and now the DC game, as well as the state game. It wasn't that some states didn't do stuff to stand up for Second Amendment. There's a reason why a bunch of states have state preemption laws, and there's a reason why before DC versus Heller, you had states like Wisconsin, which basically put a state-level Second Amendment into the state constitution. But you didn't have the pushback in DC. You didn't have, I mean, what, we're at 27 or 28 states with constitutional carry, permitless carry at this point.
I remember when not every state had carry, period.
Right.
More than half the country didn't.
We're the second to last state. We're the 49th state here to get concealed carry. Wisconsin, we tend to be the first state to do something or the last state to do something, and that was unfortunately one of the last ones. But but now we've got all these great groups out there: Gun Owners of America, NAGR, SAF, FPC, FRAC, and others who are doing it great.
Gun Owners of America,
right?
GOA.
Yeah, all these groups that are out there pushing the ground game and have really kind of honed the art of how do we do this in a way that moves the needle and wins. And that has resulted, I think, in people seeing the victory and the success. And then as a result of that, people are willing to stand up and actually put some money into these groups. ordinary people just donating $5, $100, whatever they can do. And that enables these groups to go out there, fund the lawsuits, find the plaintiffs, see it through to completion. And that kind of stuff really matters.
It does matter, and it has grown exponentially over time. I would say, and I will give credit where it is due, although I know some people reasonably frown, the NRA started, but these other groups built from that and went, I would argue, much farther and much more effective now.
Yeah. And
it's more decentralized than it was.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not one of those anti-NRA people. I didn't mention them because I was thinking specifically about the legal ground game. You know, NRA historically has been a lobbyist organization.
Correct.
And they've exerted pressure through those kind of mechanisms.
They've been a great shield. They are not the sword.
The Second Amendment, we will be stronger with a strong NRA.
Yes.
And we're all cheering for them. At least I know I am. But they obviously have a lot of things to fix.
They have some problems to address. I think they will.
Well, we got the fire going. I can feel it. It feels pretty good. Is there anything else we need to do right now, or just need to let that cook off while we
This needs to cook off. We should probably begin step 2.
Let's start step 2. So where I think that kind of leaves us, you know, I understand why when I open up Reddit and gun forums, people are talking about how, are we really winning? Because if you live in Illinois, if you live in Hawaii, if you live in
Minnesota.
Washington State,
Washington, Minnesota,
right,
Oregon.
it doesn't feel like winning. And I respect that. But simultaneously, it also, you can see the tangible success as far as what's going on. And again, I keep coming back to the long game here. And the long game is the federal judiciary getting stocked with presumably pro-gun Republican-appointed judges. And I'm not saying that to play Team Red or Team Blue. I'm just saying that because...
When's the last time we've seen Democrats push pro-gun legislation? We're not trying to, again, Team Red or Team Blue, but when's the last time they did it?
So I can only think of a few cases, and you guys know I really get into the weeds on cases here on this channel. And I can tell you as well that for every video you see me going through talking about some sort of courtroom outcome, there's a whole bunch of videos that I could have made on other courtroom outcomes that, rest assured, I looked into just for one reason or another, maybe time, maybe something else. I just didn't have enough to get into it more. But I can only think of a small handful of cases where Democrat-appointed federal judges went pro-Second Amendment. There are some. It's not zero, but I would be surprised if this isn't a single-digit percentage relative to everything else I look at. And likewise, not 100% of Republican-appointed judges rule for the Second Amendment. But
there are plenty of rhinos out there.
But I mean, if you see a pro-Second Amendment ruling, you would probably be safe to put 10-to-1 odds, probably more than that.
I was going to say 50-to-1.
Maybe that it's a Republican-appointed judge. And hopefully that will change. You know, hopefully there's going to be a Democratic pro-2A groundswell, and we can get the Second Amendment out of the political football position that it is right now. I know some people are a little bit worried about that because there's other things going on there too, but I'll be curious to see the comments and your thoughts down below on that. But let's start mixing some of these ingredients here. Looks like the fire's still going, so that's good. We're going to start off with our ground venison. Now, for making things easier, falls under the lessons learned from last year, because you can't see it, but there's ice. There's a stream that runs just off camera. I mean,
the camera is actually over it, technically speaking.
Yeah. And there's a layer of ice on that. So that's the reason why his hands are in his pockets. My hands were in
warming
my
pockets.
The butter. But in order to not have my hands go numb like they did last year, I pre-cut all these.
Make sure that you...
Right. So we've got butter.
He's the lawyer. He ought to be good at lubing things up.
Sometimes the clients do that too. Yes, margarine is better. Bluntly, we just forgot. I forgot. this was
We
an
both,
oversight.
yeah, don't fall on your sword there. I forgot plenty too. As we mentioned earlier, this is the abbreviated Thanksgiving special, and both of us have, well, I've got about an 8,000-mile journey ahead of me. You have the entire family coming up and other matters. It's a crazy year. It really has been a crazy year with a lot of changes for both of us and for the 2A community as a whole.
Yeah, I know for me this morning, so I came up yesterday. We're on, I'm very fortunate to have a second home up here in beautiful northern Wisconsin. I'm from southern Wisconsin, and what do you think, that looks pretty good?
I would say hand me a paper towel.
I don't campfire. I don't camp very often.
Camping is a Holiday Inn without a dome, or as I explained last year, I once stayed in a DoubleTree that was out of cookies. All the same, I have picked up a few things. And wow, yeah, this is thicker than we would have thought, but it is below freezing, so here we are.
Right. We're making do with what we have.
Yes. The big deal here is trying to get the entire surface coated, because if things get near the top, because they bubble and churn with the fire, we don't want it burning on at the top.
Yeah, so he's pulling that up there. So I got up here yesterday, and I've made comments, particularly if you follow me on Twitter. Check me out on Twitter if you'd like. I should be more active on there, but you know, I'm married. I don't do this full time. This is just something that is kind of fun, that I enjoy doing, and you know, that's just kind of where that is for me. But I do a lot of hunting, particularly bird hunting. So October, November is kind of my happy time as far as getting outside, and particularly rough grouse hunting, woodcock hunting, and then later on I do some pheasants as well. But I had the dogs up, and Adam nice and early was able to get in a quick hunt yesterday afternoon, flush some grouse. And this morning, it was 14 degrees this morning.
Ew.
So it was a bit on the chilly side, and it hasn't been that warm, or not that warm, it hasn't been that cold in some time. So there was a lot of frost on the ground, and I think the birds were protesting a bit. I didn't see any.
Protesting, they were probably frozen to the ground.
Didn't see any, but we did get some points, and I think that there were birds that were in the area, but they were just kind of skedaddling along ahead. And, you know, that's okay too, because it's just nice to get out, and it's beautiful where we were doing rough grouse hunting. Very thick cover. You can't really take two steps in any direction. You're kind of just swatting things down all the time, in case you don't know about it. That is my rough grouse hunting shotgun that I've got in the back there. It's a side-by-side 20 gauge. I like that because you are going through, as I already mentioned, most people would look at the type of terrain where you're hunting grouse and say, that's impassable, you don't go through that. That's exactly where they are. Extremely high stem density. We're talking like Robin Williams' knuckle hair. That's the type of stem density we're talking about. Extremely, extremely, extremely tight. And as a result, having a firearm that's really light, really handy, and is super fast to point, that's exactly what you need. And don't get me wrong, last year I did a lot of hunting with an over-under 12 gauge. I have a Beretta ultralight that I picked up at a gun show many years ago, used for an amazing deal. I like that too. But this has got about another pound lighter on that, and that can be the difference sometimes between hitting your bird and not hitting the bird. But yeah, rough grouse hunting is, there's a reason why they call the rough grouse the king. It's like a paranoid schizophrenic as far as birds go. And between the habitat it's in, it's running, it's taking off, it's challenging. It's very challenging to go after, and I'll take a light shotgun any day in order to help me maximize my chances at it.
Schizophrenic. I've had tenants like that.
For those who don't know, Mike is also a landlord, among his many different things that he does.
I wear many hats.
Many
that
hats.
one is torn.
Yeah, he likes to post what he calls true tales of a landlord. And for, I think, your very suburban friends who may not be as acquainted with some of the, let's just say, more HBO sides of the world, yeah, that can get a little spicy.
Yes, this is a family show, despite my best efforts. My True Tales of the Landlord and some of those are not family fare.
They are not.
No.
They're hilarious.
In fact, in a few states, I think you need to be 25, not 21. Utah, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a hoot. And if anybody out there is ever thinking of becoming a landlord, I'm not going to say not to, but that's something I'd want to sit down and discuss with you at length. There are days I question my life choices.
And the fires for the charcoal is really taken off camera. So if you just saw us both look over in that direction, that's the good news. So we actually had to relight it just to make sure that it was going. We didn't have the breeze here this year that we did last year, which personally I'm very thankful for, because remember that part about the ice? Yeah, no breeze is kind of nice. But last year we had that nice tailwind to help us out with the fire. This year we didn't. But it just took a quick relight, and it's really kicked up now.
Last year, we could have done this on the ice. This year, it's just a thin layer. Don't get me wrong, it's still cold, especially with the trees, but it's not what it was last year. And for that, I'm grateful.
Yeah, last year was something else.
Okay, see, it's just a matter of spreading it around. I'm not going to say it's the world's best job, yeah, only because it's, frankly, despite my best efforts, the butter is still frozen even in my pockets with my hands on it. Oh well.
So I browned a couple pounds of venison for a deer that I shot last year. For those of you who are curious, this is a Second Amendment related program. Last year's deer, actually, both my wife and I shot deer last year, now that I think about it. And
yeah, I remember you telling me that
it
was successful.
Yeah. I think every single year we've both got one except 2 years ago. So I had to think, because getting older, so everything's like a year out of date in my head. But
I don't want to hear it, whippersnapper.
Yeah, so normally when I hunt, I really like a 7mm .08. It's I use that with nozzler partitions. I've used that from everything from wild pigs, wild boar, to deer, and I've never not been happy with that. 140 grain nozzler partition, deep penetration, often comes out the other side. I know that's too much penetration. I know I'm losing energy. I get it, but
well, you have hardwood on your property. I hear people discuss calibers and everybody, oh, you're wrong. And nobody considers that we have 50 states and maybe a little bit of international viewing here. I used to live in Arizona. I look forward to returning there soon. The distance and the calibers used for deer in Arizona, where you don't have thick hardwoods in your way, is very different than here, which is also going to be very different than, say, a state like Indiana, or I can think of Michigan with their caliber restrictions.
I think
things like that.
Does Indiana have one of those sidewall restrictions, or slug only?
I want to say so, but I am admittedly not an expert on hunting laws.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, for example, Arizona, if you're using a semi-automatic, you have a magazine capacity restriction, but that is only for hunting. Other states, here in Wisconsin, we're silent on that.
So what I just added here is I've added some chopped up red peppers. I think I had about a cup. I got about a cup and a half of chopped up sweet yellow onions. We've got a cup of chopped up celery, and then a whole bunch of spices. We've got ground sage. We've got onion powder. We've got a tiny bit of garlic powder. We've got a lot of chili powder. We've got some cayenne pepper. We've got black pepper. We've got some sugar. We've got some salt.
It smells great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this over the fire, because just like last year, I didn't have lunch. And I ate breakfast kind of early because I went hunting. But this year I corrected and at least had a larger breakfast. So
That's not the food you claim to have eaten when we were testing the sound on the microphones.
for the food?
You said something about a sandwich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we won't go there. This is a family show.
It was a sandwich, but that wasn't what I was joking about when Derek asked me to test the microphone. But leaving that to the side, so we're gonna get some tomato sauce going. It's really up to you what tomato sauce you like. I tend to not count on tomato sauces that come with a bunch of pre-flavoring, just because it kind of messes with what I'm trying to do. And I'd rather be in control of what it is that I'm trying to do. So as opposed to letting the brand kind of dictate what it is that we're gonna, what we're adding and all that kind of stuff. So here I just got some Red Gold, which is a brand that they make phenomenal ketchup. If you like kind of a sweeter ketchup, they've got phenomenal ketchup. My family loves that stuff. So
Here.
let's see
You've
here.
got a knife.
Yep. We only need to get it open just a little bit to kind of get
Just
this
get the
going.
lid up.
And get that going in there. And part of our snafus is that we don't have the normal kind of quantity here that we're going to be doing. So I don't think we're going to be putting necessarily everything we have into it. We're also going to add some tomato paste to not really thicken it up so much, though I suppose it has that effect to a certain degree, but just adds a little bit more tomato flavor and depth, and also helps to give a little bit more of a sweet kick to it, which I like. So
If you've been doing well in chili cook-offs, we don't ask questions.
1 for 1. Although you had the chili last year, and you said you
It was
liked
great. Yeah, it truly was great.
Although that time the secret was starvation and making sure you didn't eat for about probably 8 or 9 hours ahead of time. I don't have that working for me this year, so I'm gonna have to make sure it's a little bit more on point. Let's see. But yeah, so that's kind of my preferred, and I use a Sacco or Seiko if you want, 85, and the wife usually likes to use that exact same rifle. And I bought a rifle for the wife. My wife's smaller. She's 5'5".
She's not tiny, but she's shorter, which would be expected.
Yeah, she's 5'5", 120 pounds. She likes to run. She plays ice hockey, so she's not nothing, but she, she's that. And she really likes that rifle because there's a suppressor on it. And that's why she likes that rifle. But I went ahead and I bought her a Kimber controlled round feed rifle in a 6.5 Creedmoor. And I got into firearms. I did not grow up in a gun family. You might think that as a Second Amendment attorney, I grew up in some sort of everyone's hunting, everyone's shooting. Nope, that did not happen. My mom grew up in New York City, mainly in Queens. My dad, who passed away when I was in 2nd grade, he did not come from a gun family either. And it wasn't that, so I was basically raised by a single working mom, and I was only child. And it wasn't that my mom was anti-gun. She was actually pro-gun. Whenever guns came up, she always made pro-gun comments, but it wasn't something you thought about. It was just kind of this thing that's on a box on a shelf we're generally in favor of that shelf, but we just don't really do the shelf. And then we were, I'm gonna add some tomato juice here while I'm talking. We were visiting her parents, so my grandparents in Florida. And this was a long time ago. And we were driving to like SeaWorld or something on the day near Orlando. And there was a store, this is back in the 90s. There was a store that had a big billboard that said, "Shoot machine guns here." And then it had the name of the store. I don't remember the name of the store. If I remembered it, I would be more than happy to plug them. And I saw that, and I was 13. And we have to go there. Screw SeaWorld. We got to go to the store. Willie can wait, or
Shamu.
Right, Shamu, yeah. Right, yeah. Like the Free Willy, Shamu, whatever, they can wait. My mom said I was hallucinating. There's no way you can shoot machine guns. And so when we drove back, I was craning my neck to spot that sign, and sure enough, found it. Now, for those of you younger people, this may be hard to believe, but I couldn't just pull out a cell phone and Google the store. We had to go find a public phone booth to then find the yellow pages, to then look up the store, then put the quarters in to call the store.
That's back when a call probably only just cost a quarter.
Yeah, and right, that's how we went ahead finding them. And then the entire next day we went to the store, and I think it was you paid, okay, now this is how long ago it was. I think we paid like a $5 cover or maybe a $10 cover or something. And we got there right as soon as they opened. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning or something. And as long as we bought all the ammo for the firearms, we could shoot any rental that they had.
Oh, God.
We shot a full auto AK-47, a Thompson, I mean, revolvers, handguns, I mean, everything. We were there, we skipped lunch. We were both having such a blast. We were there, I think, about 6 hours.
Wow.
And the whole day cost us like $130. Right. You can't say that anymore.
No, $130 now. I'm aware of a couple of higher end gun clubs where that's like the rental rate just for, say, a Mac. And that does not include ammo.
Yeah.
That might be a target.
Truly different days.
Yes.
Truly different days. So, long story short, a couple years later, I wound up being over at someone's house out in Nevada who had like 1,000-acre farm. It's just like this green little dot in an otherwise, desolate desert. And the guy looked at me, the farmer looked at me, they raised alfalfa, and, asked if I was interested in helping them with their jackrabbit problem. And I was 15 and a half because I had my learner's permit from that trip. And, he looked at a 15-and-a-half-year-old boy and asked if I wanted to drive his UTV around by myself, or his ATV, even better.
UTVs I don't think existed.
Yeah, no, I was ATV around by myself with a sack of 22 and a lever action 22 rifle. So that was another day of not having lunch. And and then, later on I got into firearms and got into it by collecting bolt action 6.5 Swedish and Finnish Mosin Nagants.
I remember those days.
And
that's actually how we first met. I was this man's dealer for a while.
Yeah, Gas Station Mike.
That was my nickname.
That was one of your nicknames.
And no, we did not transfer firearms at gas stations, but I do remember a significant quantity of ammunition.
I think it was belts.
That too?
That was what it was. That was belts for an MG. Is what that was.
34 or 42?
42, MG 42
Yeah, semi-auto
belts.
MG 42 you had.
Yeah, still
I remember.
have.
Cool.
Still have, but yeah. Well, okay, we got this all here. I think we're all set to go with this, maybe mix it around a little bit.
Definitely, and while you mix, it's funny, my own story is very different. When I turned 2, maybe I was 3, I think it was 2, out camping, my dad handed me his 1911, and that was the first thing I fired as a 2-year-old. So I started a little earlier than Tom, fired many other things over the years. My uncle was a gun collector. At one point he had, I don't even know how many safes, and yet he was still running out of room. From there, there was a family trip to Vegas. You were in Florida, I was in Vegas, and the first legal machine gun I ever fired was an Uzi at the gun store. That was the name of the place. I believe it's still there. Shout out to them if they're listening. I know they've gotten bigger. And I remember thinking, this is great. Wish I could have one. And the guy who was helping said, sure, you can have them. You need about, $1,200. And this can be done. And I thought, $1,200? Where am I going to come up with that? I'm not even out of junior high yet. What I didn't know is that they had already been banned and that they kept going up in price. But hey, $1,200, that's the goal. Let's get one of these things. Never mind the difference in laws between Wisconsin and Nevada, all of that. Time passed, and I realized when I was in high school, a lot of my friends were really complaining about the jobs they had. They didn't like them. Well, when I was a freshman, the assault weapons ban passed, and that included the magazine capacity ban. And it did not take long, because a fool and their money are soon parted, for all these people to be damaging their Colt and Adventure line and all the other aluminum mags. And I taught myself how to repair them. So I would get them for $5 to $10 each, grossly damaged, get them repaired, or at worst get parts out of it, and then resell them for $30 to $50 each. And I did that all throughout high school and into college. Worked very well. Things kept growing. I never did get that Uzi, because then I turned around, they were like now $2,500, doubled in price on me. What's going on here? Ended up in Arizona after getting laid off from my corporate job after graduation. At that time, it was not AI, it was outsourcing to Bangalore, India. So I moved to Arizona, got another soul-sucking job out there, but also had enough to buy a house. Realized that the HOA I was in was annoying, so ran a hostile takeover of the board, and my first move was to allow home-based businesses. And that's how I ended up with an FFL and pretty quickly an SOT. First machine gun was an Uzi, pre-86 dealer sample. Still have it, and after the changes at ATF, it's now transferable. Kept adding on, and kept growing the collection. Like my uncle, gee, I need a bigger safe. I need another safe. I need another bigger safe. Met this man, met many other people, and here I am today.
Here we are today. Yeah.
Lord help us all.
The story.
Yes, it is.
And that was all a fun detour down the path of just explaining why I got the 6.5 Creedmoor. Is because I got into firearms through Swedish Mausers, so 6.5 by 5.5. And I know people make fun of 6.5 Creedmoor, but I really like...
People make fun of everything.
I like 6.5 the bullet, and I thought that would be great for the wife. And it turns out she didn't want it, because she likes the suppressed 7mm .08. So we've kind of traded rifles, and that is what it is. Still love the 7mm .08, but I guess I'm shooting the 6.5 Creedmoor. Let's get this chili going. It's all mixed up, ready to go, and then we can turn to some cornbread.
Ooh.
All right, so off camera, we cleaned up the table a little bit. Mike got another fire started. You're probably seeing some B-roll about that right now. And it feels like it dropped another 5 degrees. I can now see my breath consistently. The stream is now almost completely iced over off camera to the side. Mm-hmm. It was not iced over to that degree before. So that's the good news here. And we're gonna mix up our cornbread.
Yes, absolutely. And while we're doing that, I hadn't even told Tom about this project, but I've been kind of active in the background, just quietly.
We need to butter this first.
Sounds
good.
Yep. As we've already established, attorneys are better at lubing it up and making things ready.
We play to our strengths.
Exactly. In my particular case, I have been involved in a kind of a really weird project in the background, on and off. And I can't go into for who, specifically what, or any real details, other than it involves infiltrating unfriendlies, specifically anti-gun types. I can't go in with my face as it is, so this is all online work, but it's been very telling what I've been seeing.
What can you talk about, I suppose? And no, none of this is scripted, in case there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, this is not scripted, because the only people who know I'm doing it are those I'm working with and me. And some of the conversations we've been having, specifically about laws, passage of laws, things going good, bad, and otherwise, that all kind of plays into this. And the real biggest takeaway I'm getting is, well, first, right now, they're generally flipping out and very depressed at the federal level. When it comes to state discussions, depending on what states they're in, some of them are jumping for joy, some of them are content to wanting things to move better, and some are truly depressed. The biggest thing I'm seeing, which scares me, I am not scared by them planning legislative moves. We all know this is coming. We all know it's standard. But what absolutely scares the dickens out of me is that they're getting, well, that's one way to get rid of the eggshell. They're getting very good at looking around the internet and basically just watching. You know, Tom mentioned in the discussion just very quickly, hey, we're all Second Amendment people in his channel. No, we're all not. And to any of the ones that think they're interacting with a friendly, but it's really me, how you doing? This is not the only channel they're watching. I'm not going to name names of the other channels, but it's stuff that you probably watch. And things like, for example, I love the FRTs. I think that they should remain legal. They do not meet the definition of a machine gun. Those videos that are getting posted can and will be used to say, look at this machine gun, when in reality, no, it's a semi-automatic Taurus that really isn't going to last too long because it wasn't made for that anyway. Photos of things, tannerite, stuff like that. And we all know, and it's settled history, that the 1994 assault weapons ban, part of it was successful because of the public's general confusion around the term. What is an assault weapon? You and I all know what it really is, and they've all been limited since FOPA in 1986. The general public does not. And I guess this is where I'm going to ask something that's going to be relatively controversial, and I can already hear the chest thumpers thumping away. Please remember OPSEC and PERSEC when you're posting. I love crazy stuff. There is a reason I've got a 40 millimeter here, integral suppressed here, machine gun there, and if you were to look in my garage at home, I have guns parked in there.
Parked being the operative word.
Well, there's no safe big enough to fit them. I have friends who have even larger stuff. So I'm not saying not to get involved with fun stuff. I am saying to be careful of mixed audiences, and I'm also saying to be careful to explain what's actually going on. No, this isn't a machine gun. The trigger resets every time. No, this is not like a normal explosive. There's no fire. We use it to set off a target when we're shooting at a mile because it's really hard to see a mile even in a good scope. Things like that. Also, certain things, maybe it doesn't get posted. It's shared only among friends. I have that agreement with people I go shooting with. It's not a bad thing. But right now, we're in an excellent time. Federally speaking, life is good. State, we know we've got some issues here and there. But what's going to happen in 3 years? I don't know. Think about bump stocks. They were legal. Then we had a problem with a bump stock with a spring, the Aikens accelerator. Then they were, okay, they're fine. Then we had that idiot in Vegas. They became illegal. And then they became legal again. Think about FRTs. Those were a problem. Now they're not. Do you really know what's going to happen in 3 years? I don't. I'm not willing to make any predictions. Are you?
It's going to get worse before it gets worse.
It'll get worse before it gets better, before it gets worse, before it gets better. That seems to be the way the pendulum's working.
I mean, that's, I think, best case scenario, is it's going to get worse before it gets better, before it gets worse. Worst case scenario is it gets worse before it gets worse.
And with the way AI is growing, do you want somebody looking at a video, seeing your face or a friend's face, your wife or girlfriend's face, find all instances of any video with this person and what are they shooting or doing? That's a pretty quick and effective way to make a dossier.
And my understanding is there's things like that already happening. I mean, you can, for instance, if you have and just really quickly, the things he's referencing, the Aiken's accelerator, FRT triggers, on this channel, we've interviewed Aiken's. On this channel, we've interviewed FRT, the rare breed guys, and all that kind of stuff. And I've had conversations with them both before and since in both instances about their own products.
We like them.
Right.
We like them all a lot.
Right.
This is not a veiled slam.
No. Far from. The exact opposite. But you look, if you have a serial number that's visible in a Facebook post, in an Instagram post, and whatever your kids are doing these days, Visco, Vine, whatever, that's effectively a registry because Google will pick that up if you put that in there. I've covered that on this channel in videos about the de facto technology registry that we have going on.
FOPA bans the federal government from making a registry of Title I. It has no effect on Google and tech bros from making a registry, especially when you're the one registering, perhaps unintentionally, but still registering.
A publicly searchable registry, just to make it a little bit better. Well, we've got the Jiffy mixed up here before we fall too far behind on that. If you saw me using the gloves, that's because it's quite literally freezing. My fingers are going a nice shade of red within moments of being exposed at this point. And rather than last year where I washed it with water, I learned my lessons. And this year I'm using those gloves. There's also hand sanitizer off screen here. But anytime I'm doing something involving the eggs, that's where you see those gloves come out. If you saw me use the Silver Contigo, I added a pre-measured amount of milk, again, learning lessons from last year. And then we mixed it up in the skillet and we're ready to get that on the fire.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
All right. So we've got the skillet with the cornbread mix going. We also checked and stirred the chili. That's coming along really nicely.
That was boiling already.
That was boiling.
That was impressive.
That was rolling. And coming from a couple of freezing guys out here in the cold who are hungry, that smells great. So looking forward to that. Mike was just asking me what's kind of the newest update, what's the latest and greatest when it comes to Second Amendment law, self-defense law, all that kind of stuff. And it's not like these laws change per se, right? Because it's not too often that you see mass revolutions in state legislatures redefining how all this stuff works. But what you do see is you do see migration and changes as far as the attitudes of juries, sometimes of prosecutors, maybe of cops, but you're seeing a lot more politics kind of creep into things. And, I've said this before and I'll say it again, but generally speaking, if you're going to be tried, God forbid, if you ever had to be tried in a self-defense firearm case, America kind of falls into, there's a lot of different ways you can shop at it, right? One of them is urban versus rural versus suburban. And I'm telling you, those are three very different jury pools. If I had to be tried in self-defense, I might want the urban jury pool the most.
Really?
Maybe. That or the rural. And then a far cry down, the suburban, far cry down. And that's just because you go into some pretty rough neighborhoods in America, and they understand that there's a self-help element to when things go sideways, and you can't just count on 911 and people to come in and save the day.
You know about my record time for police response when I've done some things.
I mean, it just people
Hours.
People in suburbia just have a really messed up view of the facts, particularly anti-gun ones, of, oh, if anything ever happens, you just call the police and it'll be okay. Sure, maybe, but in real life, it just doesn't work out that way, right? Because when seconds count, police are just minutes away. And that's not an anti-police statement, that's an observation of reality. And good
With
cops know that.
depolicing as well, and the budgets in some departments. I mean, I was shown a Milwaukee squad car where a old stop sign was welded in to make the passenger footwell whole again due to rust. I mean, this is real. That's how bad it's getting in some areas.
I would not want an urban jury filled with gentrified millennials and Gen Z. So let me clarify that. I want people whose grandparents and parents grew up in those neighborhoods. I would not want a bunch of gentrified millennials and Gen Z. That's a different animal. But you know, it's kind of
And
like
he is a millennial, by the way.
I
I know.
technically,
just due to age only. Yeah, I get it. Not trying to, but it's not just coming from a place of us slamming other generations.
punching down on whatever. I mean, I prefer the term exennial, but that's neither here or there. You know, I'm going to try this on you because I don't think we've ever talked about this before. But I've got this theory that there's two different types of gun stores. Okay. Mm-hmm. You've got the kind that are super pro police. They tend to look tactical when you get in there, right? The employees have like the gray button down 511 stuff, right?
Yeah, and then you mark it up 20%.
Those ones tend to be very pro police. And then at the other end, you kind of get the, I don't want to say the FUD, but let's just say they're the I know my rights shops, right? And true story, I had an attorney of mine who was dealing with the gun case, and we were trying to find an expert, and it wasn't the normal kind of expert that we've got a Rolodex for. It was a different kind of expert, and he's kind of anti-gun, but that's neither here or there. I think he's come around somewhat, but we went to a couple of different stores, and I told him, all right, pay attention, because you're going to see very different stores and very different attitudes. And we walked into the stores, and they know who I am, and I said, look, here's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody here who's got a good enough background, probably some armor certifications and so forth, to testify for defendant in court, and then kind of explained what's going on. And the pro police store said, well, let's look for ways on how we can convict your defendant, right? And then store number two, I didn't have to prompt either one. They both just took the ball and ran in their direction. I guess, first off, what do you think about that? And I realize we're getting a little bit off track on the suburban versus urban juries, but it ties back together because the suburban people are just like, well, I'm going to believe the police, and if they say that he's guilty, and he must be because he's sitting there, then by gall, he's got to be convicted.
And imagine, don't think about the criminal when he's saying that. Think about you after having defended yourself from a criminal. That's important.
Right.
They don't care who's sitting there. They just know that they're sitting there, and therefore they have to be guilty.
Right. Yeah. Let's check on that cornbread a bit. I'm seeing a lot of steam come out from there.
I was just moving a few coals around, so go ahead and let's continue the conversation while I try to figure this out.
So where I'm going with this is Mike is basically fixing up the cornbread and attending to some chili there, is that it's not always obvious that the people who you think are going to be pro-gun or anti-gun are also going to be the pro-gun, anti-gun juries. And that's something that a lot of people really miss. They just think, oh, well, I live in a red suburban county, and it's all going to work out because, hey, the prosecutor, the head DA says that, they're pro-gun. It says right there on their campaign page, right. But
Politicians don't lie.
when you see words like zero tolerance and that kind of stuff too, that's code for you will swing if they can. Not all the time. I mean, it's going to vary depending on where you're in the country. But by and large, when you see stuff like that, that's generally code for if the prosecution can hit you with charges and make them stick, they're going to do everything possible to make that happen. And that's a problem. And that's a big thing that as Second Amendment, as self-defense and everything continues to get increasingly politicized, it's hard to imagine if it can get any more, but I guess we'll find out one way or the other. But I think that we're going to continue to see that gulf widen. And don't get me wrong, if you're in your urban counties, prosecutors may be more zealous because they're probably very anti-gun in order to bring charges against you. But they also understand, hopefully, about what they're going to be able to make stick if push comes to shove at the end of the day. So you might be facing a steeper uphill challenge politically with prosecutors and judges, but you may have a much better jury pool. In suburban areas, you may be dealing with judges who maybe lean a little bit more favorable, particularly compared to urban judges. But you may have prosecutors who are frankly much more zealous, not out of politics, but just out of you shouldn't resort to self-help. You should just call 911 like a good suburbanite. And then you get to rural areas, and then that's where things get very different, very different.
Rural areas are rural areas. It's pretty rare to hear about a truly bad setup out there. I'm just shocked to hear your take on the urban versus suburban areas. It makes sense. And this is another one where, no, this is not scripted. I'm legitimately surprised, but yet it makes sense.
Yeah, I would probably rather have certainly an urban jury pool compared to a suburban one, taken as a whole.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
How are we looking down there?
The bread may or may not be interesting. This is my first attempt out of a cast iron pan like this. But, hey, if nothing else, what's the scientific phrase? Failure is an option.
Failure is always an option. Mike, is there anything else I guess you wanted to cover here? Because I bet that things are kind of coming down the home stretch.
I really think they're coming down the home stretch, and I think we're in a good place to see what we've got and perhaps, I guess, enjoy some food.
All right.
So, we have, off camera, gotten things plated. Because we're in Wisconsin, you put cheese on chili. That's what we do here.
Do you not do that in other places?
Not all other places. And then there's the argument about beans versus no beans. I don't have enough guns if we get into that argument with people. So we're just going to leave that alone entirely. Cornbread, the top got a little burnt, and that is my fault. I let the foil touch. However, it is completely done. It's done through. Only the surface is burnt. And yeah, this is really tasty.
Third bowl is for Derek, who's back after going to the field hospital, dealing with the second wave assault of the deer.
Well, that, and I thought he was going to get pecked to death.
Yeah.
Can't have that. So let's try this chili.
Let's check this out.
Yeah, it is probably about 30, if not 28 or 29 now. Gotten a little cold.
Yeah, the temperature's really come down a lot about halfway through this. Mm-hmm. It just hit a wall once the sun kind of dipped below, not the horizon, but below the tree line. And
well, we're on a timeline here.
We're feeling it.
30 minutes or less, you will not see your hand in front of your face. Not bad.
Yeah, it's different than last year.
It is.
It's different.
Definitely would have let it on a little longer with the vegetables.
Yeah.
But still, very edible, very tasty.
Yeah, it's good. It's different. I think maybe I had more tomato juice last year. Also more kick this year, I think.
No, I would argue the kick, but I can't speak to the tomatoes. The juice I do not remember. But given that we haven't eaten in, I don't know how many hours, and you are about to turn into a tomsicle, yeah, I'm perfectly fine in this. I'm a little cold, but it's not bad. This man has had enough for the day.
Yeah, from grouse hunting early morning to, well, all of this here. There's one more thing we have to do here. And that's, of course, to open up Pop-Tarts. Now, having spoken directly to Paul, I can tell you this isn't his favorite flavor, but I didn't see his favorite flavor.
It's what we had, and frankly, this is really, it may be the Grieve channel, but this is really for him and for his family. Personally, I take very long drives over Thanksgiving and well into December, and his Thanksgiving video is always what I put on and would last me well into Missouri coming out of Wisconsin. Of course, to keep Governor Pritzker in Illinois happy, yes, my phone was turned upside down. I was listening and not watching because I am a good boy.
Illinois laws.
Anyhow, to
Well,
Paul.
yeah, to Paul, and to all of you that are watching, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you tuning in again this year. Post up your questions, your comments. Do you want to see Mike back on the channel? Because Mike doesn't really believe me when he says that when I run into you guys in the wild, at shows, at conventions, at seminars, at just gun stores and ranges, one of the things I always hear is, hey, bring back Mike. And Mike doesn't believe me. So let me know. Should we get more Mike content? Comment that up down below. We hope that you have a great, safe year, great, safe 2025, a holiday season.
Enjoy your time with your family, your friends. Get out and shoot something and just enjoy. From me to you, you deserve it.
Take care, everyone.
That is good.
Yeah? Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.